You've probably been there, right? You're part of a project with this brilliant, game-changing idea, and then it just fizzles out. It happens constantly. And here's the thing. It's almost never the idea that's the problem. Nope. It's the execution. And it all boils down to this one simple framework that we think we know, but man, we almost always get it wrong. We're talking about the improvement cycle. I mean, you know that feeling, right? A project kicks off with all this energy, so much excitement, and everyone has these super high hopes. But then, fast forward a few months, and it's like nothing ever happened. It is just so frustrating, and it's a story we hear all the time. So what is going on? What's the ghost in the machine here? Why do so many great ideas just fail to make any real lasting change? Well, it turns out the secret isn't about finding a better idea. Not at all. It's about having better follow-through. The real reason everything falls apart, it's actually hiding in plain sight. It comes down to just two, crucial steps that pretty much everyone, and I mean every single organization, just completely blows past. All right, so let's unpack this thing. This framework is called the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. You've probably heard of it as PDCA. Okay, the best way to think about PDCA is kind of like the operating system for improvement. Seriously, all those other fancy tools and methodologies you hear about, they're just apps, and they're all running on this one core framework. So if you get this part right, everything else just works so much better. So let's start with the first two steps. Plan and do. Now, these are the ones we all know, right? This is the exciting part of any project. It's the part everyone loves to focus on because, let's be real, it feels like where all the action is happening. So the plan phase, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. And honestly, this can be the biggest chunk of the entire effort. This is where you're figuring out, okay, what's the actual problem we're trying to solve? What's our target? You analyze the situation as it is right now, get your boots on the ground, and then you come up with a bunch of solutions and pick the one that looks the most promising. All right, next up is the do phase. This is the implementation. But listen, this is way more than just making a change happen one time. The real secret sauce here is making it stick. I mean, anybody can try something new for a day, right? But true success, that comes from standardization and training so that this new way of doing things actually becomes the default way. Okay, and this is where everything changes. This is where it gets really interesting. We've now arrived at the part of the cycle that, for whatever reason, is the one that's most often ignored. But it is by far the most important. It's the reality check. The check phase. This is where the magic is supposed to happen. Or, let's be honest, it's where it usually fails to happen because people just skip it. They just jump right over it. It's like our source material says, this is probably the single most overlooked part of the entire PDCA cycle. So let's just be real for a second. Think about the last big project you were on and ask yourself these questions, honestly. Did your solution actually work? Did you really hit your goals? I mean, really? Because in most cases, if we're being truthful with ourselves, the answer is usually something like, no, not really, not well enough. And this is exactly why so many teams get a false sense of victory. They fall right into a classic trap called the Hawthorne effect. And what this means is that sometimes just the act of observing a process, just paying attention to it, can make things temporarily look better. So the numbers go up, management sees the good-looking chart, declares victory, and moves on to the next thing, while the process, just quietly slides right back to the way it was before. And all of that brings us to the final and really decisive phase. Act. So what you do next, well, it depends entirely on what you learned during that check phase, that all-important reality check. Okay, so you really have two clear paths forward here. Path number one, the change failed. You don't just give up and walk away. Nope, you ask why. You dig in and you run the whole PDCA cycle again with a new plan. But path number two, if it worked and you're positive it's not just that sneaky Hawthorne effect, then you standardize the process, you celebrate the win, and you move on to prioritize and start a new PDCA for the next problem. See, it's a continuous loop, not a one-and-done project. And hey, do not underestimate the power of that celebration. It's an absolutely critical part of the act phase. I love this detail from the source material. Sometimes success can be as simple as bringing in a 3-pound bucket of gummy bears. A small thing like that can go a super long way in making a win feel real and getting the team fired up for the next challenge. Okay, so let's circle all the way back to our original question and put these pieces together. Why do most improvements fail? Well, it's not really a mystery anymore, is it? I mean, here's the problem in a nutshell. We pour like 90% of our energy and resources into plan and do. That leaves this tiny, pathetic 5% for check and another 5% for act, which, by the way, are the only two steps that actually tell us if all that upfront work even mattered. This crazy imbalance, that's the root cause of failure, right there. When you boil it all down, we fail because we get tricked. We get tricked by those false positives from the Hawthorne effect. We start to value a spiffy-looking presentation more than the messy reality on the shop floor. And, let's be really honest here. Nobody wants to be the person who has to raise their hand and admit that the super expensive, shiny new solution they just spent months implementing, it isn't actually working. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Just think about it. What problem could you solve in your work, in your life, anywhere, if you stopped thinking of projects as being done? What could you really accomplish if you didn't just stop at do, but you truly committed to the full discipline cycle of check and act?